What's going on, boys? Welcome to the stream. Just allow me a second just to pull up everything. Make sure everything's working properly and whatnot. And, set the whole goal thing and whatever. Let's do that. Set the goal. Okay. It's looking good. And alrighty. So what's going on, guys? Welcome back to our daily stream, essentially daily stream. We stream every single day during the week, 8 p.m. Eastern time, which is obviously right now. And on weekends, we stream at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So welcome back to our little stream we do here. Since yesterday that we talked, there's been a couple of new things that came out in terms of news. The first thing that I just want to quickly touch upon, they're starting to fill out the card for UFC Perth. This is a fight night. This is not going to be a pay-per-view, but still, usually when the UFC goes to Perth, it's usually a pretty fun card. So I'm excited for it. There's nothing in terms of main events or maybe even main card fights, but one fight that got announced was Navarro Sterling versus Hanato Balfaido, the guy who kind of quit in his last fight. So that's an interesting one. I know a lot of people think Sterling is going to be good. At this point, I'm not too high on him, but I would like to see a couple more fights out of him before I make my official opinion on him. But that's an interesting one, I guess. That's coming up relatively soon. The other thing that I wanted to touch upon was this. We have Tom Aspinall talking about in an interview that talking about him potentially fighting Francis Ngannou. And, this has been something that I've been talking about for some time now, but I really think that Tom Aspinall versus Francis Ngannou makes all the sense in the world. For Tom, at this point, there's a lot of guys that I think he's just going to beat. Cyril Gane, Curtis Blades, Volkov, Pavlovich, Jailton Almeida, some of those guys that I mentioned, he's already beaten before. All those guys are just, guys that he has some sort of an advantage over them in, whether it's in the striking, whether it's in the grappling, whether it's both. There's just so many guys that, Tom Aspinall, I don't think will have much of a difficulty with. And outside of the guys that I just mentioned, just quickly looking throughout the rankings, outside of those guys that I just mentioned, you have Waldo Cortez Acosta, who I don't think has any chance versus Tom, or Tybura, Spivak, Tai Tuivasa, Gaziev, Mick Parkin. There's really not too many guys that have a real shot against Tom Aspinall. So I think him potentially going up against Francis Ngannou actually does make a lot of sense. But yeah. MB, what's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. And there we go. We got someone on Kick trying to promote. But yeah, so that was the first bit of news that I wanted to touch upon. Outside of that, obviously UFC 318, I thought was a pretty successful card, pretty fun card. There was also an interview going around of Dustin Poirier talking about his fight against Max Holloway, and essentially what he was saying is, for the first time in his career, or at least for the first time in a while, he felt that he was holding back to try to protect himself, I guess. And that was the first time he's felt like that in his UFC career. So essentially what he was saying is he thought it was a good idea for him to retire. So, that's something. Also, there's been some sort of a rumor going around of when Max Holloway dropped Dustin in the first round, that he was holding back a little bit. I don't know. I think there may be some credence to that, but at the same time, Max was certainly trying to get a knockout in that fight, especially the last 10 seconds, first round, the second round, he hurt Dustin multiple times. So yeah. I DM Vinicius Oliveira if he wants to fight Sean O'Malley, and he replied back and said, I want to. Wow, you got a reply out of Vinicius. That's pretty cool, actually. That'd be a cool one. I'm sure he would want that fight. Obviously, Sean O'Malley is much higher than him in the rankings. That honestly could be one of the tougher fights for him in the division. I've talked about Vinicius a lot. I think he's going to be good. He's obviously very wild, very physical, has a great chin, hits really hard, and also has great cardio, great pressure. I think he'll have a lot of success against guys. But I think a guy that could have success against him is a guy who hits really hard and is a a very slick striker, and that's kind of what Sean O'Malley is. But maybe Vinicius will look to clinch up a little bit more than normal. Maybe he'll look to wrestle a little bit more than normal. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm sure that's not going to be next for Vinicius. I'm almost positive of that. But we'll see who they give him. I think there's a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys that I think are really good matchups for Vinicius Oliveira. So we'll see what happens for that. But that's pretty cool, though. That's pretty cool, though, that you got a DM back. Whitaker versus De Ridder next. Yep, that's this upcoming week. That's going to be a really, really fun one. I'm definitely really excited for this. Of course, I'm really excited for this upcoming card because the card is actually pretty good. But one of the reasons why I was excited for it was for the Pico fight versus Mofsar. That was one that I was really excited about. But outside of that, the main event is still really good. RDR versus Robert Whitaker. I have a video coming out about this on Wednesday, actually. Breaking this main event a little bit more, breaking it down a little bit more in depth. But basically, I think Whitaker is probably the better fighter, and I think stylistically, it's not a bad matchup for him. But I just feel that RDR is eventually going to find some sort of weird sequence where maybe he hurts Whitaker, maybe he finds a takedown, and if he does find himself on the ground with Whitaker, I think he has such a big advantage. Everybody likes to look at RDR's kind of awkward game, but they forget that on the ground, this guy's legitimately really good, and he has great submission skills, and he has, decent ground and pound shots as well. So I kind of feel like in some way he's going to find some sort of weird sequence to hurt Whitaker or find a takedown. And from there, I think there's a possibility he can find a submission or maybe ground and pound strikes and find a finish or something like that. But we'll see what happens. I saw this on Twitter the other day. It's either RDR is going to look minus 1,000 or plus 1,000, and I kind of agree with that. You don't really know what you're going to get with RDR sometimes, and I do think that kind of I think that's could be a big factor in this fight. I'm going with Whitaker. Whitaker's better everywhere. I probably would agree. I think the only aspect where RDR would have an advantage is like actually on the ground in terms of wrestling. Whitaker is a very, very good counter wrestler. He's one of the best ever, honestly. So it's going to be hard to take this guy down. But if RDR can somehow find his way on the ground, I think that's really where he can have a lot of success. But on the feet, in terms of the striking, Whitaker is certainly a better striker. And in terms of his takedown defense, he obviously is better. But I don't think Whitaker is going to be shooting for takedowns in this fight. But we'll see. I think there is. So there's two areas where I think RDR is better than Whitaker. I think in terms of, when they're on the ground, in terms of their grappling, alongside with the physicality. And I talk about this, I know, a lot, but physicality is pretty important. And I do think RDR will have an advantage in that. Whitaker's 1-2 combo will catch De Ridder. I could certainly see that. I don't think, De Ridder has really seen, that sort of combo all that much. On the feet is kind of just guys throwing shots at him, and he's able to avoid some of them. He takes some of them, but he's able to eat them. But, when you're taking a 1-2 high kick from Whitaker, it will be difficult to take that. So I think probably RDR's game plan is going to be to pressure as much as possible to avoid space against Whitaker and avoid some of those 1-2 high kicks, Whitaker's signature combination. But if Whitaker can keep this fight at range, I do believe he'll be able to, obviously throw a bunch of 1-2 high kicks, and I wouldn't be surprised if he landed one or maybe more than one of them. So we'll see. But on principle, I do agree with you. The only reason why I'm just going with RDR is, as I said, I just feel like there's going to be some sort of a weird sequence where Whitaker gets hurt or he gets taken down. And at that point, I think there's a decent chance that RDR can find a finish some way. But of course, we'll see what happens in that one. I'm definitely really excited about that fight specifically. Outside of that one fight, the card is still really good. We have Peter Yan and Marcus McGee. Let me pull up your comment quickly. Peter Yan is also fighting. Fight night is stacked. Yeah, I agree. Peter Yan versus Marcus McGee. I think this is kind of a weird matchup. I don't think Marcus McGee has much of a chance against Yan. We'll see what happens on fight night. Maybe I'm underrating him, but I also have a video coming out about this on Friday, breaking this fight a little bit down more in depthly. But I think Yan is essentially better than Marcus McGee everywhere. He's certainly a better striker. He has a good chin. He has decent power. He has good kicks. He has even better wrestling than Marcus McGee. So theoretically, if Peter Yan wanted to avoid all danger, he could just take Marcus McGee down and hold him down. I don't know if he's going to do that. I'm assuming he's probably not. But But I do think he has a wrestling advantage over McGee, and we'll see what he does. I think Jan will win via TKO or KO. I would agree. I would agree. We saw Marcus fight in the past. In his last fight, he was kind of getting his legs torn up. Now, obviously, Jan doesn't. Jan has good leg kicks, not as good as Martinez, but he has good leg kicks, and I wouldn't be surprised if Jan utilizes some of those leg kicks as a part of his game plan. Just seeing how Marcus McGee had so much trouble with leg kicks in his fight previous to that. But as I said, inside boxing range, long range striking with kicks, body kicks, leg kicks, head kicks, wrestling. Jan kind of has McGee covered everywhere. And outside of like a flush shot landed on Jan that knocks him out. And even then, I don't think it's super likely just because Jan has a pretty good chin and good defense. I kind of think Jan has McGee covered everywhere. But we'll see what happens. Maybe I'm over or underrating Marcus McGee, but I am pretty confident Jan will get the victory. Then after that, we have Shara versus Marc-Andre Barrio. Shara has been a guy that, I'm really not too high on at all. He has good kicks. I will give him that. But historically, I just have not really been a fan of guys that utilize kicks as the main basis of their striking. I just think it's very exploitable. Yes, at range, they're going to be very effective with leg kicks, body kicks, head kicks. But if you're able to, break that range and get on that inside boxing range, you're going to have a lot of success. And I think we saw that a little bit in some of Shara's fights, even in the fights that he won. When guys were able to get on that close inside boxing range, they had a lot of success. Shara doesn't really have great boxing at all. Doesn't hit that hard either. And, considering that he only has one eye, it becomes more difficult to see some of those shots coming his way. So in this fight, I think Shara's probably going to win. I don't think that highly of Marc-Andre Barrio either. But, obviously Marc-Andre does hit really hard. He does do a good job at pressuring at times. And if he's able to pressure Shara in the corner, cut off the cage, and, start to put some combinations together, who knows? Maybe he could land a big shot. But I'm not really expecting it. Barrio has a bad chin. I think Shara will be able to rock him at least once. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. So, yes, I'm not really a big fan of Shara, but in this fight specifically, I do think he's good enough to beat Marc-Andre Barrio. But we'll see what happens. Then we have Asuma Bayev. This is a guy I'm actually pretty high on. He's very exciting for the flyweight division. He's also really good. He has a lot of different abilities, a lot of different skills. Hits pretty hard, as I said. So we'll see how he matches up. His original opponent was Tamirov, but it was a replacement. I think it's Ochoa is his replacement. I got to double check that. But Cho is also a guy who's pretty good. I believe his last fight was a first round finish. So really good fighter there as well. And I think that fight is going to be a good one. Then we have Bogdan Guskov and Nikita Krylov. That's going to be a fun one as well. Two strikers. Nikita Krylov is very, very aggressive, as we saw in his last fight versus Dominic Reyes. So we'll see how he comes back from that TKO loss. But this one, another one that's pretty fun in terms of rankings. It does mean something, I guess, but kind of just a fun fight. This one is kind of weird to me. I don't know if this is the official order of this card, but then they have Bryce Mitchell versus Hayden Nurmagomedov on the prelims. I feel like this is good enough to be a fight on the main card, especially of a fight night card. But this is also a really good one. You have the explosion of Nurmagomedov and explosive kicks, ninja chokes, and certain submissions versus the wrestling and maybe a little bit of a slower pace of Bryce Mitchell. This is definitely an interesting one. I do think Bryce Mitchell is going to be able to win this one. He's moving down to 135. I thought at 145, he just had such a physicality disadvantage, I guess you could say, against a lot of guys that, were able to land big shots, hurt him and knock him out, also stop a lot of his takedowns because of it. But, now him moving down to 135, I think he's going to have a lot more success with his wrestling. And I do think he'll be able to take down Nurmagomedov, tire him out. Sayed is very explosive, great kicks, as I said, but he does have a problem with gassing out. So if Bryce Mitchell can find takedowns, I think he'll be able to get the victory. Then we have Muslim Salikov versus Carlos Leal. This one's going to be probably a pretty action-packed fight. I'm assuming Leal is going to win. Salikov is honestly not as bad as you may think. He is 42 years old or however old he is, but he has a really fast spinning wheel kick. That's honestly, unfortunately, that's kind of all he has, but he's very, very effective with it. So, John, what's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. So if he's able to land it on Leal, then, it could be another spinning wheel kick TKO victory or a KO victory for Salikov. But I'm assuming Liao will win that fight, but kind of just a fun one. Then we have Damon Blackshear versus Davy Grant. This is a good one. Blackshear's a good fighter, in my opinion. Really good on the ground, great jiu-jitsu. And even on the feet, he's been improving as his career has been progressing. So, I'm pretty high on him as well. And Davy Grant is, he's all right. He could put on fun performances, but I don't necessarily think he's going to beat Blackshear. John says, KVS is 4, but what do you think of striking? That's an interesting one. For Rebellis of Spain, like, he actually does have some decent striking. He's obviously also ridiculously long, and I think that's why people thought he would be good at heavyweight. It's just the problem is obviously he can't wrestle at all. I mean, he got out wrestled by what's his face? By everybody. He got by Cortez out wrestled him, but that wasn't the guy I was thinking of initially. It was the fight before that. But regardless, he got out wrestled by everyone. But him versus Ciryl Gane in a striking only match could be an interesting one. I mean, I think in terms of skill, Ciryl Gane is certainly a more skillful striker. But the thing about Spain is he hits really hard and his reach is so long. So maybe if Gane's pulling back on a certain shot, the length of Rebellis of Spain could catch him. And maybe hurt him. I mean, we have seen Ciryl Gane get hurt in the past by Tai Tuivasa, of all people, when he was, pulling back, maybe not being extremely defensively sound. So who knows? I would assume Ciryl Gane would win this, but, who knows? Like, the power is always going to be there. And maybe Rebellis of Spain could land a big shot. But if I had to guess, I would probably go with Ciryl Gane in a striking only affair. But Despain's doing some good things in karate combat. He's getting a bunch of finishes. I don't know the level of competition in karate combat, but he is, getting finishes. But unfortunately, I don't think he's ever really going to be an MMA fighter at this point. Maybe he doesn't have any interest to be, but even if he did, I don't think he would really have the chance just because he cannot stop a takedown at all. So, it's unfortunate. Kid, what's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. W stream. Let's go, brother. Thanks so much. Thanks for being here. What about the Spain versus Ngannou / Alex Pereira versus striking only matches? I think Ngannou beats him. I think Alex Pereira. I guess the length is a problem for Pereira, but I do think Pereira is just too good. I think he would beat him as well. And then Ankalaev is an interesting one. Ankalaev doesn't have like the power necessarily to knock out Spain or anything like that, but what Ankalaev does have is he's very defensively sound. But honestly, maybe against Ankalaev, because the size difference is going to be like ridiculous. The length for Despain in terms of his arms, even his leg length is going to be big. So I could see him landing a bunch of leg kicks on Ankalaev, loosening him up to the legs, and maybe landing a couple shots up top. So maybe it sounds weird, but he's just so much bigger. I could honestly see Despain beating Ankalaev in a striking only affair. But that'd be a funny matchup. But yeah, I think for Pereira, I mean, obviously Despain would be a lot bigger than Pereira too. But I kind of just think Pereira, he's been striking for too long. He'll have too good of an understanding of angles and whatever, and I think he would be able to get on the inside, land a left hook or something like that. But yeah, Azimat, we're gonna call down again. Ooh, that'd be a good one. That would be a good one. Yeah, that would be a banger. Yeah, that would be a banger. That would be a really, really good one. I'm really excited to see what Antiba is able to do going forward. As I said in his last fight, of course, against Valentine, it was a very quick finish. I believe it was like a minute or less. But it's still like, well, obviously you're impressed by a knockout that ends that quickly. But even more important than that, I thought, what's it called? I thought the fact that Antiba was able to stay so technical in those moments was even more impressive to me. As I said, a lot of times when you see younger guys, especially guys with a lot of power, even some older guys like Michael Chandler, when they have their opponents hurt, they just throw a bunch of like random shots. But for Antiba, he was able to do a good job at staying technical. We saw him throw uppercuts. When that uppercut was open, he was able to land it. That right hand, when the right hand, was open, and he was able to land it, and he was able to get a relatively quick finish over Valentine. I also thought Valentine showed a really good chin for taking some of those shots. But yeah, this is definitely a guy to look out for. I will be making a video on him. I think this guy's like legitimately really good. So we'll see. But now it actually just came to my mind. But I believe Azamat, because Torres Finney pulled out. Yeah, I believe he has a replacement already. Let me see. Let me see. Let me double check this. But I thought I saw somewhere that he has a replacement. Yeah, he does. So his replacement is sorry. I'm gonna butcher this name. I'm just gonna pull this up on screen. I'm gonna butcher the name. Um, let's see. Let's see if I can find this. Here we go. Pull this up here. Yeah. So this is a replacement. Unless Crazy Kev's wrong, but usually he is right. So this is his replacement. It would be really cool to see Antiba fight. It would be a really big banger, but I think this is what they're going to end up doing. But going forward, there's a lot of really good matchups. I think we were talking about this the other day, and I actually do agree. I don't know how many guys are really going to want to fight Gutierrez. This guy is unranked at this point, so how much is that really going to help your career going up against him if you beat him? And also, he's just really dangerous and really good. So I think it might be a little bit difficult for him to find MMA fighters to accept fighting him. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe we've had issues like this in the past, and early on they'll give opportunities to guys who are new to the UFC or stuff like that against fighters that other guys don't want to go up against. So maybe we'll see him go up against some unknown guys originally, and he'll get a bunch of finishes, and then going forward from there, he'll move up the rankings. But we'll see what happens for him. I do think he is going to be really, really good. But yeah, so outside, so the last fight we were on for this upcoming weekend is Blackshear David Grant. That's going to be a good one. Hebas and Tabitha Ricci, that could be okay. Ibo Islam versus Billy. Ibo's going to get an easy KO, I think. Muhammad Yahya is not really good. This is one that I'm interested in, but as I believe Kid Lowe said it yesterday, this Marcus guy that's coming to the UFC heavyweight division, it's a new addition to the division, which is always a good thing. But I think he's just a jiu-jitsu nerd. We'll see if he's actually good, but he's going up against Martin Budai this upcoming weekend. So we'll see how he does. I'm really hoping he's good because we need more talent at the heavyweight division, but if he's just kind of like a jiu-jitsu nerd, we'll see how good he actually is. But yeah, one thing that I also wanted to do with you boys is somebody said it. I don't remember exactly who said it. What's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. But somebody said it the other day. I think it was Joshua. He mentioned that we should do a best chins tier list. If you're new to the live stream, we've been doing some tier lists in the past. So I kind of put something together and let's go through it together. How do you see? Let's just answer this question quickly. How do you see a potential Holloway versus Oliveira fight going? I kind of think Holloway's going to win that. I think with his increased power, he'll be able to land clean shots on Oliveira, maybe even hurt him. And I think he's a lot more defensively sound at this point than he was in the past. So outside of Oliveira taking Holloway down, which is a possibility, Oliveira does have good wrestling. If the fight's on the feet, I think it's an advantage for Max. Dustin Solskjaer's Chris Big fan. That's true. That's actually true. I could definitely see that happening. Man, that guy's taken a ridiculous amount of damage in the past. But going back to the Holloway Oliveira fight, I guess it'll depend where the fight is. If Oliveira could get takedowns, which is a question for Max, especially moving up to 155, can he stop takedowns there? He was able to do a decent job in the past, but can he stop it at 155? If he is able to do so, I think he'll have a lot of success. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into this tier list. So this is a tier list of fighters that I think have the best chins in the UFC. Be sure to let me know any guys in the comments or in chat, I should say, that I'm missing or any positions that you disagree with. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. So the first guy, all right, is my computer tweaking out? I'm sorry. I apologize, boys. I think my computer's tweaking out. All right. Anyways, hope you guys could hear me. But the first guy is we have Marlon Chito Vera. So Chito Vera is obviously a guy with a really, really good chin. He's taken a lot of shots. He took a clean shot from Sean O'Malley. He's taken a lot of shots over the years. And he's just proved to have a really good chin. So for Chito, I think to me, he's probably like high tier of B tier. He did get dropped in his last fight versus Figueiredo, but Figueiredo hits really hard. But outside of that, he's shown a great chin. So he's either upper class of B tier or lower class of A tier to me. The only reason I put him there and maybe not even higher is he does have really good defense. And outside of the Sean O'Malley knee and maybe the Figueiredo clean right hand, he hasn't taken that many shots. He's pretty defensively sound. Now, the next guy is Colby Covington. Now, I'm kind of considering Colby Covington to be the Colby in his prime. Now, Colby has a different chin than some of the other guys on this list. For Colby, I think like he gets dropped a lot. If he takes clean shots, he'll get dropped. But I could still consider him to have a good chin because he's able to survive and get back up. So Chito Pantoja and Pedro Munoz are my top three. Yeah, that's a good one. I don't have Pedro Munoz. I got to add him to the list. But yeah, so for Colby, it's like a different kind of chin, and I think I'll probably deduct some points. So for Colby, I'll probably say B tier as well, but like lower half of B tier. I think Chito's chin is definitely better than Colby's, by a decent margin actually. Next we have DDP. This guy's obviously, and I've talked about this a lot, but I think he's the most physical guy in the UFC. He hits really hard, but also the other part of that is he has a really good chin. So I think he has a really good chin. So I probably put him in B tier as well, maybe a little bit below Chito. Maybe it should be above. I don't know. It's kind of hard comparing chins from different weight classes, but maybe I would put him there. Honestly, you know what? I'm going to change this already. I'm going to put Chito at A tier, and I'm going to put Dricus at A tier, and I'll have Colby at B tier. I think I'm going to do that. But yeah, I think we'll do that. Next, we have Dustin Poirier, who's had a really good chin throughout his career. Now, as of late, this is to deduct some points, maybe. As of late, he's got dropped a couple times in his fight versus Max Holloway and his last fight. He's been hurt a couple times in the past, but for the most part, Dustin has shown a really good chin. So I think for him, he'd probably be in B tier for me. He's taken some big shots and not went down and been able to continue. So yeah. Endo has the best chin of the higher weight class for sure. Yeah, that's a good point too. That is a good point. Next we have Kevin Holland. Now, Kevin Holland, I think, is an A tier for me. I'll tell you why. So throughout his career, I don't think he's ever been dropped outside of his last fight. But he's taken some really big shots. He took a flush spinning elbow from MVP. Not that MVP hits like that hard, but he hits relatively hard. And he went full power, spinning elbow right into Kevin Holland as Holland was coming in, and it really didn't affect Kevin that much. Now, in his last fight, he did get dropped and he got hurt pretty significantly versus a guy who I don't consider to be a huge puncher. But when you watch specifically that one sequence where Kevin Holland got really hurt in that first round, it was a perfectly timed left hook. The left hook was the backhand. It was the power hand. Kevin Holland was coming into it. It was full power, like a full power left hand, landed clean on the chin of Kevin Holland, and he got hurt significantly, yes, but he didn't go out. So I actually think the fact that he didn't go out kind of boosts Kevin Holland's chin, in my opinion. And in my opinion, I think he's A tier. I really do think he has a really good chin. Now, in terms of Israel Adesanya, I think on this list, it's got to be C tier. But for Israel Adesanya, when he was currently is probably C tier or maybe even D tier compared to some of these other guys. But when Israel Adesanya was in his prime, he was taking a lot of big shots, and he's shown a really good chin. And I think that's a huge reason for why he was able to be so successful. He was able to take, a left hook in his fight against Alex Pereira the second time. In his first fight, he got hurt by the left hook and he got finished, but he was still there. He was still somewhat with it. And then in his second fight, he was able to take a left hook relatively clean, and he didn't get hurt. Or, well, he got hurt, I'm sure, but he didn't get rocked or anything like that, all that significantly. So I do think Adesanya's chin is really, really good. But at this point, I've talked about this before on live stream. Maybe I'll make a video about this as well. But Adesanya's chin is just not what it was in the past. So in terms of this list, I'd probably put his chin in C tier. He just got knocked out by Imavov in his last fight. So we'll go from there. Adesanya's chin is just getting more worse because of his age and weight cut. Yeah, I do agree. I do agree with his age and also probably some of the shots that he's taken over the years against Pereira, against some other guys. Kelvin Gastelum was a big part of it. But yeah, you should do a worst injuries tier list. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. I'm always down for another tier list. Connors is going to be high on that list. Anyways, this is kind of just a funny one. Johnny Walker's obviously D tier. He's got one of the worst chins in the UFC. And he always finds his way into a big right hand or some sort of a big shot, and he gets knocked out. So Johnny Walker's also going into a fight this weekend, or not this weekend, but his next fight against Big Bang. And pretty big puncher, and I think Johnny Walker's probably going to get TKO'd. For Johnny, I kind of would like to see him retire relatively soon. He's still athletic, and he's still, like, I guess has some skill. It just, he takes too much punishment, and his chin is completely gone. It's literally his body telling him, like, stop fighting, and he continues to fight. So it's unfortunate. Walker D tier. Is there a special Z tier for Johnny Walker? Yeah, I probably should add an extra tier just to put Johnny Walker, or should I just have him like untiered? Just put him back here, untiered on the list. I remember that Chidi cut Gregory. That was nasty. That was a really, really bad one. And G-Rod came back to win that fight. That was pretty insane. That was like so weird to me, honestly. That Chidi kind of put a beating on G-Rod for the most part of that fight. Obviously caused that like ridiculous cut on G-Rod's forehead. Like, you literally could see his bones in his head. And then I believe it was his next fight after that, he got knocked out with one punch by Baby Hulk. And obviously Baby Hulk hits really, really hard, but it was just weird to see him taking all that punishment against Chidi, who's also like a relatively hard hitter. And then he takes one shot in his next fight and he goes out. It was kind of weird to see, but that was a nasty, nasty cut. G-Rod, literally, as I said, you could see his bones in his head. But Cannonier has an incredible chin. I think Imavov and Robocop just hit that hard. Piston right hand. Cannonier does have a pretty good chin as well. He does. He's been hurt in a lot of his fights, but as you said, yeah, I do agree that Imavov and Robocop kind of just hit that hard. And for the Imavov one, I thought it was a bad stoppage, personally. He was definitely hurt, but I thought it was a bad stoppage. He threw like a right hand right before the ref stopped it. So, yeah, Jared Cannonier is another good one. I'll add a couple guys to the list after. These are just guys that I thought of initially, but after we're done with these guys, I'll put some more guys on the list. Next, we have Josh Emmett. MB thinks Josh Emmett is in B tier. That's probably fair. I mean, he's been knocked out before, Josh Emmett. The only reason why I would even consider putting him in A tier potentially, or maybe even in front of Dustin in B tier, is just because he was able to survive against Ilia Topuria. And as I said, I know he was TKO'd in the past or KO'd in the past. What's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. I know he was KO'd in the past, but taking that beating that he was able to take against Ilia Topuria, honestly, is just kind of ridiculous. It's not like Topuria was, eased up on him or anything like that. He was landing big shots on Emmett. He was able to drop him multiple times in that fight, and we saw what Poirier was able to do to like everybody else. He knocks everybody else out with one punch, it seems. So the fact that Emmett was able to take all those shots from Poirier almost makes me want to put him on A tier personally, or high tier, like the high class of B tier. I'll leave him in like the upper echelon of B tier at this point, but his chin's really, really good. Next, we have Justin Gaethje. This one's an interesting one to me because he takes like a ridiculous amount of punishment over the years, and he's been able to have a really good chin. He got knocked out by Max, but outside of that, or I guess technically he got like really hurt by Charles Oliveira as well. But for the most part, he is able to take a lot of big shots. He does throw himself into the fire. Obviously, historically, he has an amazing chin. So for me, for him, I'd probably say B tier ahead of Poirier. I think that's probably where I would have Justin Gaethje personally. He takes a lot more punishment than Poirier did, and I think his chin is just a little bit better, but both guys have a really good chin. Next is Khamzat Chimaev. This one is probably a guy that not too many think about, but when you look at his fight against Gilbert Burns, when he was able to take that, that huge, perfectly timed big right hand versus Gilbert Burns, like directly on the chin, essentially, or maybe it was the back of the head, the back of the ear, which is also another sensitive spot. He was able to take that shot, and he definitely got hurt, but he was able to survive and go forward from there and ended up winning the fight. So I do think Khamzat has a really, really good chin, And Gilbert Burns is what he is at this point. But one thing you can say this point, and also especially earlier on in his career, he hits really, really hard. So the fact that Hamzat was able to take that is pretty crazy. So for me, Hamzat's probably like here, I would say like B tier, just because we haven't seen that much evidence of Hamzat taking huge shots. For the most part, he just takes down his opponents and submits them or finishes them with ground and pound. So really the only time we've seen Hamzat's chin is against Gilbert Burns. So he definitely has a really good chin, but we haven't seen that many examples of it. So in my opinion, I think it's B tier. Next we have Max Holloway, essentially Iron Chin. I have him in A tier. Probably if my computer will cooperate. Yeah, probably like either there, probably A tier ahead of Drickus, ahead of Kevin Holland, maybe behind. Nah, I'll put him ahead of Cheeto if I could do that. There we go. I'll put him in the head of A tier. Reason being is over the years, Max has taken a ridiculous amount of damage. Now, I talked about this a lot in my breakdown video between Max and Dustin, and even in my video I made recapping that fight. But Max at this point does a much better job at staying safer and not taking as much damage. But when Max was, in his prime, and honestly, he might be in his prime now, but when he was the champion, at least I should say, he was doing a really good job at putting combinations together. But in turn, he was getting hit a lot. He was able to take a lot of damage, never got dropped until the Gaethje fight. People consider, or he technically didn't get dropped in the Gaethje fight. I think he did. But regardless, he was able to survive a lot of those shots that Gaethje was able to land in that fight, and that was moving up a weight class. Obviously, at 145, he never got dropped until Poirier. But Poirier just hits really hard, and even some of the shots that Poirier was landing early, Max was able to eat. He was able to eat shots from Dustin Poirier, who also hits really hard. So I think Max Holloway's chin is certainly really good. Honestly, I'm going to put him on S tier, just thinking about it now. But yeah, so then we have Pantoja. This one might be controversial, whatever. Pantoja for me is S tier ahead of Max Holloway, just because this guy's chin is just insane to me. He's taken some huge shots over the years, and outside of that Figueiredo fight, he's never been dropped, and also he's never been finished. So I personally think Pantoja's chin is insane. And even when you look at some of his more recent fights, ever since being the champion, he took, I don't know if it was flush, but he took a relatively big knee from Kaya Sakura. He took a flush elbow when he was coming in from Steve Erceg, and Erceg's not necessarily known to hit the hardest, but he has some decent power for that weight class. And usually when guys are throwing a shot and you're coming into it, it doubles or triples the power of it. And, outside of being bloodied up, Pantoja didn't really show much wear from that. So I think Pantoja's chin is arguably the best at this point. Next, we have Kamaru Usman, who obviously MB says Pantoja S tier. Yeah, I agree. Next, we have Kamaru Usman, who's had an amazing chin. Yes, he took a clean head kick that knocked him out cold against Leon Edwards. But outside of that, he's shown an amazing chin over the years, taking some big shots, not really getting hurt. Even in the Leon rematch, right after getting knocked out by Leon with the head kick, Leon was able to land a flush, like huge knee up the middle, and Usman was able to take that pretty well. A tier, says MB. So Usman has obviously had a really good chin over the years. And I do agree with you. For me, he's in A tier. Maybe a little bit ahead of Kevin Holland in A tier, just because he's been able to go up against some better fighters, and he was still able to Usman A tier. Yep, I agree with you, MB. Just because he was able to eat some shots from arguably bigger punchers and definitely better fighters than Holland was able to go up against over the years. So for me, I consider him an A tier. Next, we have Ilia Topuria, who this might be controversial. Man, I kind of want to put him in S tier, to be honest. Just because I'll say this, the hardest hitter, Buckley couldn't KO him. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. But for Topuria, the reason why I want to put him in S tier or maybe in A tier, I'll put him in, is because he doesn't take that many shots. He certainly does take shots, but clean big shots, not too many. But the fact that he was able to take a shot from Jai Herbert, a perfectly timed head kick while coming in. Obviously got hurt really badly and obviously got dropped, but he didn't get finished. And I think that kind of shows how ridiculously good his chin is. Most guys go out cold, not just TKO or whatever. Most guys go out cold. So the fact that he was able to survive that, recover within the round, it's not like that happened with 3 seconds left in the round and he had the break to recover. the round was still going on. There was still a minute left or however long there was. And he was able to recover and able to come back and win that fight. Kind of just, in my opinion, shows how good his chin is and kind of just shows how physical this guy is. So, in my opinion, I kind of think Topuria is S tier. The only reason that would want to make me put him in A tier is just because he hasn't been hit like that much. You know, hasn't taken that many clean shots, but you know, he did take some shots from Charles Oliveira even in their fight, so he has a good one. He's at 155, so it should, will be even better now. That's possible too, yeah. Oh, yeah, there you go. Topuria did take an elbow from Charles and it didn't react. That's true as well, yeah. And Charles obviously does hit really hard, so yeah, I think I'll keep him in. I think I'll keep him in S tier to be honest. Marvin Vettori, he's got to be S tier. This guy's chin is ridiculous. When you talk about, honestly, is he here? Maybe. Honestly, he might be there. You know, when you look at some of the fights over the years that he's been in, he took a ridiculous punishment against Jared Cannonier. I don't know how he survived that fight, and Cannonier hits really hard. He's taken, you know, flush head kicks from Paulo Costa, and Paulo doesn't hit the hardest. I don't want to say that, but he took multiple flush head kicks from Paulo. That, you know, that's pretty tough to do. And he didn't really get hurt. In his fight against Brendan Allen, it seemed like he got hurt a couple of times. Maybe his chin is getting a little bit worse over the years after all the damage, but still he didn't get dropped or anything like that. And he was taking clean shots from Brendan. So I consider Marvin Vettori's chin to be S tier. And I think a huge reason for why he's as good as he is because of his chin. He has a really good one. Took shots from Emmett as well. For Max, yeah. For Topuria, yeah. That's true. That is true. So yeah, I do think Topuria is an S tier. Vettori might have the best chin in the UFC. Yeah, he might, honestly. Yeah, honestly, does he have a better chin than Pantoja? The only reason why I want to keep Pantoja here, maybe he does because he fights at a higher weight class. Honestly, yeah, probably I should put Vettori as the best. That probably makes more sense. I just think Pantoja's chin is also like ridiculously good, obviously. I mean, he is an S tier at the end of the day. But yeah, this is kind of my list. Let me know if you guys disagree with any of these guys on this list. I do believe some of you guys had some other suggestions of guys I should put on the list, like Jared Cannonier and even RoboCop I could put on this list. So let me quickly do that. Jared Cannonier. Let's get this beautiful picture of Jared Cannonier. Just beautiful. Jared, and then RoboCop, UFC. G-Rod, we'll do this spectacular shot of G-Rod if it'll load. Is it going to load? No, it's not going to load. All right, we'll take this one. That's not a good picture. Ay. We'll use this one. RoboCop got flattened in his career, though. Maybe 3 times, yeah. His chin, I think his chin is like selectively good, which is weird to me. Like he'll take huge shots in one fight versus Cheaty, for example, and then in his fight after that versus Baby Hulk, who does hit really hard, but in his next fight, he just, you know, he gets knocked out with one punch. So it's weird for RoboCop because I do think he has like a selective chin. As I said, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good. So for him, I think maybe I'll put him in C tier. Like when his chin's good, it's definitely better than C tier, but just the selective nature of it, I think probably be in C tier. And for Cannonier, I think it's kind of similar to Colby, honestly, where he does get hurt in a lot of his fights, but at the same time, he does survive. He got hurt by, by the way, he did survive in his fight versus Caio Borralho, but I thought it should have been stopped. It's weird. Caio Borralho, I thought should have stopped Cannonier. He was hurt really, really bad. He got dropped like pretty bad at the end of that 5th round. But in his fight versus Imavov, I thought it was an early stoppage. But regardless, Cannonier has shown a pretty good ability to survive. Usually he takes big shots when he goes in southpaw, so he certainly's got to work on his southpaw defense. But yeah, he does have a pretty good chin. So in my opinion, I would consider him to be in B tier, just behind Colby Covington. And honestly, I think these guys have kind of similar chins in a way, just because, you know, they do get dropped a lot, but at the same time, they do survive. So that's kind of where I see it. What about JDM's chin? Never been dropped in the UFC. Yeah, JDM does have a pretty good chin. He doesn't take that many shots. I'll add him to the list. But he doesn't take that many shots. That's the only thing. Oh man, Jack Della. Jack Della. I'll use this tremendous shot. I didn't want to do that. JDM. Let's go back here. Let's add JDM to the list. All right, JDM. I will never understand how to survive that Kyle fight. Brutal beatdown at the end. Yeah, I thought the ref kind of did him disjustice. If that makes sense, I thought they should have stopped it. But good on Cannonier for surviving. He was hurt so badly at the end. That 1-2 alongside the cage from Bahayo, letting clean on Cannonier, and Cannonier was out. I mean, he was essentially out. But he did a good job at surviving. So good performance, not performance, but I guess good surviving ability from Cannonier. But for Jack Della, this is a weird one to me. Like, it appears like his chin's really good. Well, I don't want to put him there, but it appears that his chin is really good. It's just he hasn't taken that many shots over the years. So maybe I'll put him in like B tier, like there, just because he hasn't taken the shots. But yes, he's never been dropped. Well, I guess he's taken a couple shots from Bilal in his last fight. Maybe I'm forgetting about some of the shots that he's taken, but for the most part, I feel like he's pretty defensively sound. When he went up against Kevin Holland, I don't really think Kevin really landed much on him, if at all. And I think in some of his other fights, the same could be said there. So probably I'll have him as SB tier for me. Rakic is a C tier. Yeah, I don't think Rakic has a great chin. I'll add him to the list. But yeah, you're probably right. C tier. Probably behind Adesanya, in my opinion. And then Munoz is A tier. Munoz is a good one. Rakic. Yeah, I don't know. Listen, obviously Yuri hits ridiculously hard, but that fight kind of showed me a little bit. Dude, I keep doing that. That fight kind of showed me a little bit, Rakic's chin. And even in some other fights, he's been hurt pretty badly. So I don't consider Rakic to have that great of a chin. So I probably would agree with you. And for Pedro, he has a really good one. We'll use this shot. We'll use this shot. Am I going to do it again? Yes, I will. Only been stopped by Yuri by punches. Yeah, maybe I'm like underrating him a little bit. And Yuri does hit really hard, so maybe I'm not giving him a fair shot. But yeah, Pedro, I do agree with you. He's probably an A tier. He's taking some big shots. Is he ahead of Kevin Holland? Maybe I'm overrating Kevin Holland a little bit, but the reason why I think his chin is so good is he's taken some pretty big shots over the years. He took a bunch of head kicks from Wonder Boy. And the thing about Kevin Holland, outside of his last fight, he doesn't even get hurt. Like, it just doesn't really faze him. He just continues to walk forward. So I think his chin is really good. Obviously, Pedro's is as well. But maybe I'll keep him here, like just behind Kevin Holland. Only stopped at Yuri by punches, and he was gassed and still didn't get flatlined. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I guess maybe my problem with Rakic is more of his boxing inabilities, I guess, inside the pocket. Like, at range, Rakic is really good. He has great leg kicks. I actually think that's a part of his game that people don't give him credit for. Maybe they do, but his leg kicks are ridiculously good. At range, he's good. He's even got a pretty good head kick that he's found a couple of finishes with in the past. But if you're able to get, beyond that kicking range and get in the inside, you can have a lot of success against Rakic. His boxing defense is really not all that great, and I think we saw that in the Yuri fight. Rakic was honestly dominating in the first round against Yuri, and then the second round, Yuri kind of just said, like, to hell with this, I'm just going to get in the inside. And when he did, he landed a big shot and knocked him out. But yeah, Rakic is not a bad one. The Rakic one didn't load in, so let's get a different picture. We could use this one. All right, let's see. Let's replace it. Go back here. Do both of them not work? Oh my god, that picture didn't work either. What the fuck? All right, this one. Rocket. There we go. Third time's a charm. So yeah, I would probably put him at C tier, maybe behind Adesanya, maybe ahead of Adesanya at this point in his career. That's probably where I have Rakic in my tier list. I think Aspinall is A tier. That's probably a good one as well. Aspinall, I'll add him to the list. Aspinall, he's at the heavyweight division. He took not too many shots, but he took some shots from Pavlovich, who hits ridiculously hard, and he was able to continue fighting. So yeah, Aspinall does have a really good chin as well. But yeah, hey, what you see? Do you have Guru fatigue? Honestly, like Guru's doing really well for himself. I really do respect what he's been able to do. Live streaming a bunch and putting videos together, becoming a really really big YouTuber. He's definitely the biggest MMA YouTuber, but I haven't really watched him in quite a bit, to be honest. So yeah, why do you got Guru fatigue at this point? He doing a chin rankings now. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Welcome to the stream. Pencil shavings. But yeah. So who do we say? Tom Aspinall. Oh, you know what's a good one? Francis Ngannou. That's a good one. He's not in the UFC anymore. Spelled it wrong. Whatever. But that would be a good one. That would be a good one. Let's add Tom to the list. Ngannou's chin, I would consider to be like almost S tier. He's taken some big shots over the years. The only thing, it was so weird to see him get knocked out in by Anthony Joshua, but it's different, obviously. Where is it? I just added it. Oh, there it is. Yeah, there's Tom. So for Tom, for me, I mean, let's see Tom's career. Let's see. So against Curtis Blades, he kind of just finished him right away. He didn't take that many shots. Against Sergey, he took that one big shot. Tybura doesn't hit hard. Blades, this first time, it was kind of just a blown out leg. Volkov doesn't hit hard. Sergey Spivak doesn't really hit hard. Arlovsky doesn't hit hard. Yeah, so the unfortunate thing in Collier, oh man. So the unfortunate thing about Tom Aspinall is the only time we really saw his chin get tested is against Sergey Pavlovich when he was able to land, I believe it was a right hand, but it was a big shot, and Tom was able to eat it. But outside of that, we really haven't seen Tom take too many shots. So I think based on that, I'd probably put him in B tier, like here. If my computer would not lag out, maybe I put him like B tier right here. Just because like these guys, Dustin has taken a lot of big shots over the years and shown a great chin. Same thing could be said more so even about Gaethje. Josh Emmett survived to Poirier. I don't know if I need to say much more. And Hamza Chimaev took a huge flush shot from Gilbert Burns. So maybe I'll have Tom here. Maybe I'm underestimating his chin. I guess really my thought process on this is he really hasn't taken too many clean shots. So we'll see. I mean, he does kind of have that issue of leaving his chin up in the air, but it really hasn't cost him yet. So we'll see where he goes from here. Emphasis with Guru. He's overrated. Mid one day, the next day, watch clips. But it's currently right now. Yeah, that's fair. I think a lot of people are like that with a lot of different things in life, where they just like criticize a certain guy and the next day they're watching him, or criticize certain music and the next day they're listening to it. So I kind of had like a funny moment with that with one of my boys over the weekend. Yeah, we try to stream a little bit I try to stream a little bit of the prelims of UFC 318, and we did it. It was a fun time talking to you guys. But afterwards, for the main card, I usually just watch it with my boys, especially for pay-per-views. And during one of the breaks, one of my boys was listening to some Drake, like kind of weird, right? Watching a fight, you're listening to Drake on his phone, whatever. So he was doing that, and then like a minute later, he's like, fuck Drake. It was kind of funny. Made no sense at all, but it was funny. Has Jan been knocked out? Jan, I don't think so. Let me see. Has Jan been knocked out? Let's see. Peter Pan. Peter Yan recent fights. I don't think he's ever been knocked out. Definitely not recently. Early on, maybe. Um, I guess an easier way to do it would be this. Nope, he's never been knocked out. Jan has a really good chin too. He's taken some big shots from Sean O'Malley as well as other guys. The thing about Jan though is he has really really good defense. I'll add him to the list. He has a good chin, but he has really good defense, so he doesn't take that many shots. But Jan does have a really good chin. We don't need two of these, so let's add Jan. Yeah. Oh my God. Oh, never mind. We're good. So Jan, I would say, based on the lack of shots, I'll say B tier right there. Based on the lack of shots, but in terms of the chin himself, I think he has a really good one. I could be underrated some of these guys. Let me know if my list is off, chat. Like I don't get offended or anything. This list might be off, but yeah. And Johnny Walker, we'll put him here. And yeah, no, but in all honesty though, yeah, he probably deserves to be like off the list. What's going on my computer, chat? Fucking hell. Can I not take him off now? All right, can't take him off. He's in D tier. But yeah, that's my list. That's my official tier list of best and in Johnny's case, worst chins in the UFC. Maybe we'll do another tier list in maybe tomorrow or one of the other days of worst chins in the UFC. Johnny will be pretty high up on that list, and as who said it earlier in chat? Was it John? Yeah, John said we should do a worst injuries tier list sometime, so we'll do that one as well. But yeah, add Marab, that's a good one, and Pantoja. Pantoja's on the list. Pantoja is in S tier, but Marab's a good one. We'll add Marab. Marab's kind of a similar guy to not exactly like Colby, but similar to Colby in the sense that he's been dropped before, he's been hurt before, but he's been able to survive. So I do think Marab has a good chin, and obviously he has been able to take some clean shots and not get hurt too bad from them. So for Marab, I would put him. I'd probably put Marab like here, maybe. Once again, B tier is very crowded, but I'd probably put him there. Just because he does get hurt in fights. And yeah, I think in my opinion, this is how tier list goes, or like best chins goes. The top of the list is guys that take ridiculously big shots but don't get hurt. They just continue to walk forward. I think Marvin's a guy like that. I think Pantoja's a guy like that. I think Max is a guy like that. And I think Poirier is a guy like that. Yes, we have seen Poirier get dropped before, even Pantoja, but we have seen Poirier get dropped before, but it was like a perfectly timed head kick. And outside of that, he's taken some big shots and hasn't really been hurt. But the step below, like guys that just have a ridiculously good chin where they just don't get hurt, are guys that have the survivability, I guess. Guys who have been dropped a couple times, but they do a really good job at surviving. And I think guys like Marab, guys like Colby, guys like Cannonier, guys like even Poirier or Gaethje to an extent, like those kind of fighters do a good job at surviving. So that's why I have them a little bit lower on the tier list. But yeah, that's what I have for this list. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And yeah, I think we kind of tallied everybody up. But yeah, so could full screen this once again. I'll close some of these links out so my stream doesn't, tweak out. I hope the stream's been all right for you boys. I know my computer's getting pretty hot, and I know sometimes it lags out or not lags out, but it tweaks out and quality gets really bad for a second. But I'm trying to get a new computer here to improve the streams, but fortunately we're not there yet. So yeah, I hope the streams are looking good, or the stream's looking good. But yeah, so kind of touched upon a little bit already about RDR and Whitaker. So that's the upcoming card for this week. I am definitely very excited about it. I have a couple of videos breaking down more in depth of a couple of the fights coming up. But I was talking about this a little bit yesterday. We were kind of like, treated pretty well as of late, just because the last time that we saw a fight in the Apex was all the way back on May 31st. And ever since then, it's been pay-per-views or fight nights in arenas. Like ever since then, it was UFC 316, which wasn't an amazing card, but it was a pay-per-view. Then it was Usman versus Buckley, which The card itself was terrible, but I thought on paper it could have been good, but it was in an arena. Then you had Jamal Hill versus Khalil Roundtree, which was a fun card, once again in an arena. Then UFC 317, which was actually really good. Then Teixeira versus Lewis, which was pretty fun in an arena once again. Then you have UFC 318, which is this previous weekend, also a pretty good card. And this week we have Whitaker and DeRitter, also in an arena. But unfortunately, next week, or like not this weekend, then the weekend after, and the weekend after that, we have back-to-back Apex cards, which kind of sucks. But I guess in all fairness, we haven't been the Apex in a while. But I know myself included, alongside with a lot of other UFC fans, would like to see the UFC completely never go back to the Apex. But I guess we're getting occasional Apex cards at this point. But we'll see what happens on some of those cards. And the card's really not that good. It's Tatsuro Taira versus Amir Albazi. Some top contenders at flyweight. So we'll see what they're able to do. I was previously high on Tatsuro Taira, but after seeing him go up against Royval, he has a real deficiency in his striking, which concerns me a little bit. But we'll see how he improves from that and where he goes forward. He obviously has really good jiu-jitsu and solid wrestling as well. So we'll see what Tatsuro is able to do. But outside of that, the card's not really all that good. Ribovic is on the card, who's usually fun. I don't really know why they would put a fight like Ribovic and Elvis Brenner on the Apex. That's a really exciting fight. Most likely a finish for Ribovic, but, whatever. Joshua, what's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. You just missed it, actually. I know you were asking for a Chins tier list. We were just making a Chins tier list before, but unfortunately I had to X out of the tab just because my computer kind of tweaks out when I have too many tabs open. It kind of like lags and whatever. But we were just doing a best Chins tier list. Who do you think is the best chin in the UFC? On our list, we had Marvin Vettori as the number one guy. But yeah, so some okay fights, I guess, on some of these. We also have Kevin Vallejos, who's always fun. He'll probably get a knockout in that one. So like some okay fights. The weekend after that is Fluffy Hernandez versus Roman Dolidze. The fight itself probably could be pretty fun, but it's kind of a weird one. Then we have Alex Perez and Steve Erceg. Oh, well, no, it's actually not Alex Perez. It's Steve Erceg versus somebody else. I don't remember who's his replacement, but I know Perez had to pull out. Hoping Steve wins. I'm a really big Steve Erceg fan. I think he's really good. Good striker. Good power even for the flyweight division. And he kind of just does a lot of things well, in my opinion. But hopefully he can get a victory after taking a couple losses in a row. Christian Rodriguez is on the card versus Andre Touchy-Feely, one of the best nicknames around. But yeah, I mean, the cards are like kind of whatever. But after we make it through the back-to-back weeks of Apex Hell, then we move into UFC 319, which is going to be really, really good. Dricus and Hamzat. I already made a video about this before. I would like to talk about it again, make another video, but I kind of already made a video about it. So how much more can I possibly talk about Dricus and Hamzat? But that's going to be a really, really good fight. It's going to be determined by the first round, I believe. And if Dricus can survive, who knows? I think if he can survive, actually, I think he'll win. But we'll see what happens. It's going to be a really good one. Joshua says, I'll throw your comment up. Joshua says, I agree with Vettori being one. I would say Holloway, but his chin might have declined after his last weekend. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, obviously, Max Holloway's taken like a ridiculous amount of damage over the years. And yes, he did get dropped by Dustin Poirier, who is a pretty hard hitter. And of course, he got knocked out by Ilia Topuria, who's also a really hard hitter. But yeah, I mean, obviously, Marvin Vettori has been, taking a beating in a lot of his fights, specifically his fight versus Jared Cannonier. I don't know how he wasn't finishing that fight. Cannonier hits really hard and was landing a lot of shots on Vettori. So his chin is just ridiculous. But for Max, he's had an amazing chin as well. He's taken a lot of shots over the years. And yeah, I mean, he's still showing a really good chin, even up until this point. But maybe his chin's getting a little bit worse, as he did get dropped against Dustin. But yeah, so for 319, we have Hamzat, Dricus. Then we have Prates and Jeff Neal. Prates and Jeff Neal. That's going to be a really, really fun one as well. I think Prates will find a finish, but I kind of see this fight similarly in terms of entertainment value to Jeff Neal versus Shafkat. I kind of think, That fight was ridiculously entertaining. Jeff Neal went forward, Shavkat went forward. I kind of think the same thing is going to be said here. I think Jeff Neal is going to try to get on that inside boxing range. I think Carlos Prates is probably going to look to keep some range, but at the same time, I don't really think he's going to be backing up the entire fight. And, he's going to throw some counter shots. I think he's going to land big shots in Jeff Neal. And I think Prates is probably going to find the finish in the end. I know he lost to Ian Gary, but the difference between Ian Gary and Jeff Neal, in my opinion at least, is pretty big. And even in the Ian Gary fight, Prates was able to hurt him really badly at the end of the 5th round, and he almost finished him. And also, I thought Prates kind of performed like weirdly. He just like wasn't throwing all that much. And I thought if he threw more, he could have found a finish. But he fought the fight the way he did, I guess. Ryan, what's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. Are you Canadian? No, I'm not. Actually, I'm from New York. Where are you from? But yeah, then we have Jared Cannonier. Actually, we were just talking about him before. But Cannonier is fighting MVP. Kind of a weird fight. I think Cannonier is going to win this fight. I think he's going to look to clinch up a lot, land knees, elbows in close, maybe get a couple takedowns. And I think Jared Cannonier is going to win the fight. But could be interesting. It definitely could be interesting if MVP is able to keep the fight at range. And most people have trouble with MVP if they're on the feet, especially at range. You look Canadian. Thanks. I don't know if that's a compliment or not, but yeah, no, I'm not. I'm from New York, and I actually don't have any Canadian roots or anything like that. Don't you wish you can train your chin? Yeah, if you could train your chin. If you could train your chin, a guy like who would have like the best chin if you could train your chin? I mean, I would say Tony Ferguson, but he already has an amazing chin. Marab also already has an amazing chin. I guess like the way to quote unquote train your chin is to be on some sort of roids. Like sometimes you see guys who have no chin and then in their next fight they have a great chin. I kind of feel like, I mean, roids I don't think necessarily make your chin better, but maybe they can like in certain ways make your chin better with better like recoverability or stuff like that. So I guess that's you can't really train your chin or make it better, but maybe that's sort of how you make it a little better. I think MVP beats him unless Cannonier becomes Trent Cannonier. Listen, if the fight's at range, I think a lot of guys would have trouble. And if this fight's at range between MVP and Cannonier, I think Cannonier would actually have trouble. He has a power advantage for sure, but MVP is like really a handful to deal with at range. He's a very unique striker to say the least, and I think most guys would find it very difficult to have success against him. But what I think Cannonier's game plan is most likely going to be is kind of what you said. I think he's going to pressure MVP as much as he can, push him alongside the cage. Excuse me. And then once he's alongside the cage, I think he's going to really want to hold him there, land a bunch of knees and elbows in close, maybe go for a couple takedowns. And if he's able to get takedowns, I think he can land some elbows and rain some ground and pound shots from up top. Obviously, Cannonier is not an amazing wrestler, amazing grappler, but I do believe he has the advantage in both of those aspects over MVP. And also he's going to be, bigger and definitely stronger than MVP. So I think he probably will look to clinch a lot and maybe even wrestle a decent amount in this fight versus MVP. So I kind of think he'll do that and get the victory. But, if it's at range, I think MVP will do the better work. I mean, crazy to think Jamal is going to go like Harrison Pena. Yeah, listen, it is possible. Khamzat is like ridiculously dominant. So if he takes DDP down in the first round and submits him, will I be shocked? I will be shocked, but would I be like, oh my God, I never could have seen that coming? No, I wouldn't be. So yes, it is possible that you end up being right. But in my personal opinion, I just think Trickus is going to put up more of a fight against Khamzat than most guys were able to. Even Robert Whitaker, who was amazing takedown defense. I think this is probably how the fight's going to go, at least early on. I think Khamzat's going to have a dominant round one. He's going to win the first round. He'll be able to find a takedown on DDP. He'll be able to put him in bad situations. Maybe he'll be threatening some chokes. Maybe he'll be landing some big ground and pound shots. But in the end, I think Trickus will make Hamzat work in the first round, and most importantly, I think he would survive. And if he is able to do so, going into round two, going into round three, going into round four, the fight's just going to get easier for DDP. So I could be completely off basis on this, but my personal opinion of how the fight's going to go is Hamzat's going to dominate round one, but then in round two, Hamzat will still be there and maybe he'll have success, but it'll be a little bit more difficult for him to have success against Dricus. But really starting in round three, I think that's really where Dricus is going to start to push a pace, land some body shots, pressure Hamzat, really start to tire him out. And I wouldn't even be surprised if Dricus finds a late finish. Now, listen, I could be completely wrong. If I'm wrong, be sure to let me know in the comments or in chat. I've been wrong a bunch in the past, and people certainly let me know about it, which is completely fair and justified. But that's kind of how I see the fight going, personally. You graduated college? I did. What better chin? What better chin better? You're saying what's better? Well, yeah, what's better? I would probably say, and which would you prefer if you become a fighter? I would probably say, that's a good question. Maybe I would say great chin, bad recovery. Yeah, maybe I'll say that because you keep yourself in the fight. I think I would. Yeah, I would agree with you, Ryan. I think great chin, just because if you have a bad chin and great recovery, it's kind of a guy like Colby Covington. I think that's a great example of that. Or I don't know, bad chin, but okay chin and really good recovery. But the thing is, if you're getting dropped like that, you're losing the round like 9 times out of 10. It would be very difficult to win that round. If you take big shots and you're able to just can just continue to walk through them, through those big shots, you're going to be able to give yourself the opportunity to win rounds. So I do think great chin, bad recovery would be my answer. But yeah, that's what I would say. Or which you prefer? Yeah. So for me, I would prefer great chin over great recovery. Ryan agrees with that. Colby was never the same after the first Usman fight. Yeah, Colby was taking some really big shots in the first Usman fight and even some fights prior. He's shown an amazing chin. And I think Colby's chin is still, in my opinion, I would still consider Colby's chin to be pretty good. It's just different than it was. In the second Usman fight, he got dropped. In the Masvidal fight, he got dropped. He got dropped again. There was one more fight, I believe, he got dropped in. But the thing about Colby is I honestly would still consider his chin to be good just because he'll get dropped, but he's not like out of it or anything like that. He's still there. He just got dropped and he just needs time to recover. So I don't know. But in terms of like prime Colby chin, I probably would agree with you. I reckon the Colby from 245 beats prime GSP. Yeah, I mean, maybe. Dude, people forget how good prime Colby was. He was like Marab with better boxing in a way. Maybe like not as many takedowns as Marab, but like a similar style to what Marab's able to do right now. But he had like better boxing, better striking. Marab's improving his boxing. So, he's closing the gap, I guess. But Colby was like really, really good in his prime. He gave obviously a really difficult fight to Kamaru Usman, and I know some people don't like Usman, but in my opinion, the fact that Usman beat him twice was pretty good for his legacy, in my opinion. But yeah, Colby was good. Izzy versus Costa or Izzy versus Strickland too for Izzy's next fight? I think in terms of entertainment value, I'd like to see Izzy versus Costa, but yeah, I think Izzy versus Costa. I would prefer that one. But Costa is lower down in the rankings. Usually they update the rankings on Tuesdays, which is tomorrow. So we'll see where Costa ends up in the rankings after his victory over Kopylov. But I'm assuming Costa's still going to be like 10 or 11 in the rankings, and Izzy's 4. You could do it, but it's kind of a big jump. So maybe Izzy versus Strickland is more likely. Ryan says Izzy versus Strickland makes more sense. I agree with you. That probably makes more sense. But in terms of entertainment value, I think Izzy versus Costa is a more fun fight. In terms of Izzy winning, I think he could beat Costa. I also think he could beat Strickland. I know he got 50-45, but I still believe that Izzy could beat him. And I think I said this a couple times. I think at this point, the one thing that bedevils Adesanya at this point is his chin and his reaction time. But going up against a guy like Strickland, although Strickland did drop him before, I think it's a better matchup for Adesanya as opposed to someone who hits really hard and is very athletic. So I know he got dominated, but I do still think Adesanya could win that. Colby is in the 10th of who he was then. I agree. Colby's completely washed at this point. I don't think his chin's terrible. I mean, I guess he was able to take shots from Buckley, but in terms of like his fighting style or his fighting ability, I should say, Colby Covington is pretty washed at this point. The fact that he wasn't able to really take down Buckley, I believe he got one takedown, but it was really hard for him to get that. And then we saw Usman taking down Buckley so easily. He took him down once in every round from round 1 to 4, and he did so easily. That one shot where Usman took down Buckley from like the middle of the octagon, and Buckley was alongside the cage. He jumped out from so far out, and he still got the takedown. Was kind of ridiculous. Shows how bad Buckley's takedown defense was. But I think from that fight, the biggest thing that I took away was Colby is washed, unfortunately, from that fight. Joshua says, was Romero's chin in S tier? We didn't. We did only. I promise I'm not in Coke. My chin's, my nose is just itchy. But no, Romero wasn't, because we kind of just did current fighters. I guess Romero could be a current fighter, but he's not in the UFC, obviously. But yeah, has a ridiculously good chin. Yeah, Izzy versus Strickland makes more sense. He was dominating the fight versus Imavov until he wasn't. I agree. So I actually think, I don't know how some other people in chat think about this, or feel about this, but I personally think that Adesanya is not washed. I know a lot of people say that, oh, Adesanya is washed. I think the washed aspects of Adesanya is his chin, alongside with his ability to get out of the way of shots, his reaction time. But outside of that, like, his skill is still there. We saw that in the first round versus Imavov, and Imavov is fighting for a number one contender fight at this point. He's actually currently the number one contender, but he's fighting, to have an ability or an opportunity to fight for the belt next. And in that first round, Adesanya he won the round, and I thought he was doing a lot of really good work. He was mixing things up, leg kicks, body kicks, head kicks at times, good jab, good right hand. Did a pretty good ability to move around the cage a little bit, but he landed a lot of good shots. So I don't personally think Adesanya is washed. I think the wash aspects, as I said before, is his ability to take shots and his reaction time. But yeah, he was outlanding Imavov by a crazy amount. Yeah, I mean, it really was the volume of Adesanya landing a bunch of shots, and then Imavov landing one big shot and knocked him out. That's kind of why I have a video coming out about this soon. Actually, I just put it together. But I talk about this a lot, and I know it might get annoying or whatever, but that's why I think physicality is so important. I think there's been a million examples of this, but Imavov versus Adesanya is a great one. Adesanya landed a bunch of shots in that round, but he wasn't really able to hurt Imavov. Imavov lands literally, I think it was like one big shot, one big right hand, he knocks him out. That's why going into fights when it's like Volkanovski versus Poirier, in terms of skill level, Poirier is really skilled, obviously, but I think Volkanovski is like right there. I think it's pretty obvious. He's right there with Poirier. But if they rematch, or if they fought 2 more times or 3 more times, I think Poirier beats him every time. Not only because Volkanovski's like older at this point, but because of the physicality difference. As good as Volkanovski can do, he can be landing jabs, landing a bunch of leg kicks, landing right hands, fighting his game plan and doing well at it. It just takes one big shot from Poirier to land it, and then all of a sudden he goes out. So I think physicality is just so important, and I think it's it was described in it was shown in a lot of fights, and the Imavov Izzy one was one of those. Have you seen the moment when you see the fight lose that chin? Have you ever seen a moment? You're a fighter, like my favorite fighter. Well, my favorite fighter, it's kind of went on waves a little bit. My favorite fighter was Charles Oliveira for a long time. And with Charles, I don't know, is his chin gone? Like, he never had an amazing chin, but he had a pretty good ability to survive. He got dropped by essentially everybody he went up against, at least in the top his run, I guess, for the belt, and not for the belt, but his run when he had the belt, he was getting dropped by a lot of guys, Chandler, Poirier, and Gaethje, but he was always able to survive. So um, I guess he had a solid chin, and then he got completely knocked out by Topuria. So maybe I would say that. I don't know, but one of my favorite fighters lose their chin. I don't know. Honestly, I don't even know if I've seen. Oh, Ryan, thanks so much, by the way. You still studying? I'm not studying right now. Oh, you're the same Ryan. Oh, thanks. Thanks so much for the donation. I really do appreciate that. I'll throw your comment on the screen. Thanks so much. This will go far away. I talked about it a bunch in stream, but I'm kind of just using all the potential money. Obviously, I'm still a small channel, and it'll be a little bit, but I'm totally fine with that. I'm kind of using it just to save up to get a new computer. So this will definitely go a long way. Thanks so much, Ryan, and thanks so much just for joining the stream. It really does mean a lot. But but yeah, am I still studying? No, I'm not still studying. Uh, but what was I saying? Oh yeah, so I don't even know if I've seen like maybe I'm forgetting someone, and let me know if there has been an example of this. But I don't know if I've seen a guy with a ridiculously good chin, like quote unquote, lose their chin. Like lately, because the guys that had great chins that got knocked out are Max Holloway, Kamaru Usman, and Justin Gaethje. Those are the three guys, and even Tony Ferguson. Those are like the four guys that I remember as of late that had an amazing chin and they got knocked out. But in all of their next fights for all those guys, actually, for Gaethje, for Usman, and also the other guys, Max, and as well as oh, your channel's amazing. Thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it. And also, and even Tony Ferguson in their next fights, it's not like their chin was gone. In Usman's next fight against Leon, as I said before in the stream, he was able to take big shots. He took a clean flush knee from Leon Edwards in that fight, and he didn't really get hurt. In some of his other fights, he also took some big shots and really didn't get hurt. His chin was still there. For Gaethje, he got knocked out by Max, but and in his next fight, everybody's like, "Oh, Gaethje's chin's gone." He got knocked out cold in that fight. He got hurt a bunch of times. He's taken so much damage over the years. But in his fight against Fiziev, he didn't really get hurt at all, and he took some big shots. Even for Tony Ferguson, he took that front kick from Michael Chandler. But even in his next fight, like he's obviously washed in his fights after that. But in the Paddy Pimblett fight, Paddy is not the best boxer in the world. I think it's obvious. But he does hit pretty hard. And Tony was able to eat, all the shots, really. He didn't get hurt that badly. And for Max Holloway, he went out against Ilia Topuria, and his most recent fight against Dustin. Yes, he did get dropped, but he was still able to eat shots. So I don't remember an example of a guy with like a really, really good chin, like favorite fighter or not, but a guy with a really, really good chin that, completely lost their chin. I mean, at least like as of late, I'm talking about within the last 5 years. But let me know in chat if I'm missing somebody. But yeah, but chins are kind of an interesting thing. And I think based upon those examples that I gave, I think when a guy goes out cold, a guy with a great chin, like let's say Topuria, I think he has a great chin, or Pantoja. I think both of those guys have a great chin. If they go out cold at some point in their career, I don't necessarily think like in their next fight or going forward from there, their chin's going to be completely gone. I don't really think that. I think, I think probably the worst thing for a great chin is to take an absolute beating, like Marvin Vettori versus Cannonier. I think Vettori's chin is just ridiculous. The fact that he's still able to eat shots, but I think that's worse than going out cold. So I guess I kind of answered it in a really long way, but I guess the way to answer your question is I have not. But I'll throw your comment on. I think Ilya beats Paddy one way or the other. Even if he doesn't knock him out, yeah, I agree. I would agree with that for sure. I think for Topuria, he, just stop takedowns and you win the fight essentially. And with Paddy, he does have really good jiu-jitsu. I know I've talked a bunch of crap, I guess, about Paddy like over the years, and I don't think he's that great. He's better than I thought, but I don't think he's that great. But one thing that Paddy does do really well is he does have great jiu-jitsu and great submissions. So if he's on the ground with Topuria and he's on top, it could be trouble for Topuria, but his wrestling is not that great. and his striking is definitely not that great. So if Poirier can just stop takedowns, which I believe he would be able to, and just keep the fight on the feet, eventually I think he finds Patty. Patty has a great chin, but so did Max, and so did a lot of guys that Poirier was able to knock out. So eventually, I think he would find a knockout. But as you said, I do agree with you. Even if somehow Patty's chin is just like ridiculous, Patty is a lot bigger than Poirier, so we'll see. But even if his chin is just ridiculous, I think Poirier still wins based on Josh Emmett, maybe kind of similar performance where he just hurts him a bunch of times, and even if he can't put him away, he just wins in dominant fashion. So yeah, I don't think Patty has much of a chance for Poirier, but maybe I'm glazing a little bit. But we'll see what happens. Fight does end up happening. I kind of feel like it will happen personally, but does Patty deserve it? Probably not, but it's a big money fight, so I wouldn't be surprised if it happens. And honestly, even for me, like I kind of would be happy. It's a fun fight. They have beef, and they're two pretty popular guys. So yeah. Rib can't take a punch after he is. Yeah. Based on the skill again, yeah, it is ridiculous. Patty's like not a good striker. I don't think Patty has an advantage in the striking versus anybody, but I think he knows that at this point. And one thing I guess I'll give him credit for on the feet is he does a really good job at, he knows he's not a good boxer at this point. We saw him when he tried to box against Jared Gordon. He got pieced up. So at this point, what he does on the feet is he just stays on the outside, utilizing leg kicks and staying safe for the most part. I don't think that's going to be enough against Poirier. I think Poirier will cut off the cage and force him on that inside boxing range. But Patty has done a good job at, I guess changing his style to a certain extent. And he's had success with that for sure. But yeah, I think Poirier wins. And honestly, as I said, anybody in the top 5, top 10 of the rankings, I think probably beats, probably is better than Patty on the feet. I mean, Islam is better if he fought at 155. Arman's striking, it's interesting, but he probably is better. Charles is definitely better. Gaethje's definitely better. Max is definitely better. Poirier is definitely better. Hooker's definitely better. Gamrot, I guess, is interesting, but he has improved striking. So I don't know. There's a lot of good guys. Sid, what's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. Matador can fuck you. I prefer not. Who you got, Oliveira or Wellmaker? Oh, that's an interesting fight, man. The thing about Wellmaker is he hasn't been tested too much. I've been on the other side of this argument a lot, where I say this all the time, but when there's a young up and comer coming up, everybody says, "Oh, that guy's never been tested, so he's not good." I always go against that. Like, you fight the guys who are in front of you, and especially for guys that are young, you didn't have the opportunity to fight many guys. But for Wellmaker, he hasn't been tested that much, but he did fight. I'm blanking out on his name, but the guy from South Africa that trains with Dricus, who I think is pretty good. And in his most recent fight, he knocked out Moutinho, who I don't think is very good. But this is an interesting one. I mean, Oliveira keeps his hands really low. In his last fight, they were literally completely by his sides. In some of his other fights, his hands are low, but like a little bit more defensively aware. So I don't know. I think I would lean towards Oliveira, but if Oliveira takes a clean left hook from Wellmaker, it's tough to eat that power. It appears that Wellmaker has like ridiculously good power. But at the same time, I think Oliveira would do a good job at pressuring, throwing a bunch of shots at Wellmaker, trying to tire him out. And as the fight does progress, it would definitely benefit Oliveira. And also, he does have ridiculous physicality. I talked about this in my video, and even leading up to his last fight. So I think he could take a couple shots from Wellmaker early, and as the fight progresses, if Oliveira lands one big shot on Wellmaker, now the question is, can Wellmaker take shots from Oliveira? So I don't know. It's an interesting one. I think I lean with Oliveira, though, personally. I think he has more ways to win. For Wellmaker, I think he would have to land a clean left hook in the first round. That's what I personally think. But that would be a good one. That would be an interesting one. I wish the UFC would just book Arman versus Ilya. Arman is number one contender and probably the closest fight to Ilya. Yeah, I was talking about this with one of my friends the other day, but Arman definitely deserves to fight Ilia Topuria, and also one of my friends was saying that he would like to see Ilia Topuria go up against like a legitimate wrestler, and Armin is definitely that, just to see how he looks. I personally think Ilia still wins, and I know most people probably would favor Topuria over Armin, especially considering Armin doesn't have a great chin. But it would be pretty cool to see how Topuria actually deals with a guy who's a really good wrestler. I mean, I think at this point it's pretty clear that Armin is the best wrestler in at 155 after Islam moved up to 170. So it would be cool, and obviously he's a number one contender. He already earned himself a title shot. I know he pulled out or whatever, but sometimes I just feel like Dana's just got to get over some of these things and just move on. And just give Armin the title shot. He definitely deserves it. Gaethje doesn't deserve it. Patty definitely doesn't deserve it. And yeah, the only bad thing, the only negative that I think can come out of this is we're probably not going to see Patty versus Ilya, just because I said this a bunch of times. But if Ilya fights Armin next, then and he wins, I assume he would win. Then I think he'll just go up to 170 and fight Islam there. I don't think he's going to get more than one title defense at 155. And I also kind of want to see the Patty fight. I think Ilya would win relatively easily, but the beef is there. The pay-per-views, it would sell a lot of pay-per-views. There'll be a lot of excitement in the arena. So that's kind of the benefit for me, or that thing that gets me excited. But in terms of the fight itself, Armin is definitely the toughest test for Ilya. Are you high on Montel Jackson? I am. I do think Montel Jackson is actually really good. We just don't see him that much. I believe he does have a fight coming up relatively soon. Let's see. Montel Jackson. I think he has a fight booked. I could be off on that though. Let's see. No, he doesn't. Okay, no, maybe he doesn't. But he's good. He has good striking, decent on the ground. The fact that he also has really good power for the bantamweight division. The fact that he was able to knock out Blackshear with literally the first punch he threw was pretty impressive. And it's not like Blackshear is the best chin in the world or anything like that, but I just thought that was a really impressive performance. And I think Montel does a lot of good things, a lot of things really well. Just the thing with him is I just would like to see him be a little bit more active. But Montel is good. I am pretty high on him. Alan or Ayer, I think. Arnold Allen easily beats Jair. Lopez, I would like to see Allen Silva. Ooh, that's an interesting one. A lot more than Lopez. Silva. Yeah. That's fair. I think that's probably a pretty good thought process, to be honest. I personally wanted to see Yair versus Lopez just because I had the beef. I thought that was a tailor-made sort of fight they could have put together. But, Lopez versus Silva is still a really good fight. But I guess you kind of hold the same sentiment, Ryan, and I agree with you. At least it seems like it from this chat. That Diego Lopez is good. He's really physical. He can take shots well. He has, solid blitzes. His boxing's okay. And he obviously hits really hard, but I think there's a vast difference in terms of the technical ability between Gene Silva and Diego Lopez. And I do think Gene Silva is going to beat Diego based on the technical differences between the two guys. I think Volkanovski showed that as well. Obviously, Volkanovski is not nearly as physical as Diego Lopez. Lopez hits a lot harder. He can take a shot a lot better than Volkanovski. And usually you lean towards the guy who's more physical. But I just thought the skill difference between Volk and Diego was so immense that it didn't really matter. And now when you're talking about Lopez versus Gene Silva, the physicality is a similar level. Gene hits ridiculously hard, can take a shot well, but also he's significantly more technical than Diego is. So yeah. Probably a better matchup to see how far Gene can go is probably would be Arnold Allen. I think I probably would agree with you on that one, but we'll see. I'm assuming Gene's going to beat Lopez, and then he'll get a title shot. I love Volkanovski. He's one of my favorite fighters, but if Volkanovski goes up against Gene Silva, I think Gene beats him. It's unfortunate. I think he knocks him out, but I'm kind of hoping Volkanovski goes up against Mosar next. He beats him and then retires, but we'll see what happens. He can't well, I don't know. Punches. Yeah, that's true too. That is true too. I think honestly, to me personally, one of the most impressive parts about, and this might sound funny, but one of the most impressive parts about Gene Silva is he's so loose in there. He's so free. He is emoting against everybody, but nobody can do anything about it. Like, he's still dominating everybody. He's still finishing everybody thus far. And I don't know, it's just been like really impressive to see what Gene Silva has been able to do. And yes, I know. I guess his best win is either Drew Dober at 155, which is a great win, finishing him. Did he finish him, or was it a decision, but almost a finish? I think he finished him. And I guess outside of that was Bryce Mitchell, who Bryce Mitchell is what he is, but Gene Silva is he's just a really good fighter. As I mentioned before, you don't choose the guys that UFC puts in front of you. You just fight the guys, and we'll see. Allen went to a close decision against a Prime Max and arguably beat Mosar. And yeah, I agree. I agree. I also think Sterling is really good at featherweight. I thought he was also underrated even when he was the champion. Dana obviously hated him because he didn't sell that many pay-per-views, and that's why he was desperate for Sean O'Malley to fight him, and he was desperate for Sean O'Malley to beat Aljo, which he did. I think if they fought again, I think Aljo would probably beat Sean. But yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of people don't like Sterling just because on the feet he doesn't do much. He doesn't have that much power, and on the feet he kind of just utilizes leg kicks and uses kind of a defensive style. And on the ground, he has really good wrestling. He has great jiu-jitsu. Like, he's an actually good fighter. But I know maybe he's not the most fan-friendly style. But I will say, Mosar versus Aljamain Sterling was a really fun fight. It was like really entertaining wrestling, entertaining grappling. So I personally am a pretty big fan of Aljamain Sterling. I'm also from Long Island, where he's from, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, I personally think he's good. But yeah, Allen did go to a close decision with Max. You're right, and he did arguably beat Movsar. Movsar versus Arnold Allen was a really close one. That fight was funny to me at the end when they asked Dana White about what you think of that fight, and he was like, "It was the worst fight I've ever seen," or whatever. Those guys did not deserve to be in there, or whatever he said. He obviously just doesn't like Movsar. Maybe doesn't like Arnold Allen either, but I thought the fight was actually like fine. I thought it was like not that bad. It was a really competitive fight. But I kind of just think Dana didn't watch the fight, to be honest. And then he just heard it from some guy who's like, "Oh, that fight was terrible." And he's like, "Yeah, that fight must have been terrible." But I guess it doesn't really matter. But I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, Arnold Allen is probably a pretty underrated fighter. He's good. He's good. This weekend card is Gustav Kripal, Omai Machuna, Mitchell, McGee. Yep. I agree. There's going to be a lot of really fun fights. I think in terms of all right, so let's go through it. Let's go through fights that I think are going to be fun. So I think Whitaker versus RDR is going to be fun. RDR is always fun. It'll be some sort of weird DDP level sequence in that fight where I think maybe he can land something big, get a takedown, find a finish, possibly. We'll see. I kind of think RDR is going to win this fight, even though Whitaker's probably has him covered in most areas, but I don't know. But either way, I think that fight's going to be fun. Jan versus McGee is definitely going to be fun. Shar versus Marc-Andre Barrio, I think it'll be fun, but if Shar can just get Marc-Andre backing up and throwing leg kicks, body kicks, head kicks, then maybe it won't be that fun. Amabaya versus Achua, that's going to be Achua. That's going to be really fun. Krylov, Guskov, of course, that's going to be really fun. I even think Bryce Mitchell versus Nurmagomedov is going to be good. Nurmagomedov is like ridiculously explosive with the kicks. Also, he does gas out. But I think that's going to be a fun one. And Bryce, I think, will have more success at bantamweight, in my opinion, as opposed to 145. Sadikov and Carlos Leal, like those guys aren't like the highest level fighters in the world, but I think that's going to be like a fun fight. Blackshear versus Davy Grant, I think the same. It's going to be a fun fight. Ibo Islam versus Billy Alcantara. I think that's going to be an easy knockout for Ibo. So I guess that'll be a fun fight. And Budai versus Marcus. Marcus is a new guy to the heavyweight division, and we desperately need that. So we'll see what happens there. There's some interest for sure. Sadikov versus Leal. Yeah, it's literally the spinning wheel kick of Sadikov versus the human steroid that is Carlos Leal. But yeah, it's going to be a fun one. A lot of entertainment, I think. Davy Grant's fights are always fun. That's true. And also he's going up against Blackshear, who I thought put up an amazing performance in his last fight. Obviously really good on the ground, but even in his last fight, he showed a really good ability to strike. So I think that fight's probably going to be pretty fun. I think Blackshear's going to win, but I think it's going to be a good one. What do you think of Bushina? You reckon maybe a splash? What? I hope so. I mean, I don't want to act like I know a lot about him. I really don't. I just know he's coming over from ONE FC, I believe, and he's a really good grappler. Bushina's, yeah, yeah. So listen. I think I don't really know. I really hope he's good though. I really hope he's good. One thing that I do want to say though is if he is a really good grappler, we'll see how his stand up is, which of course is important. But if he is a really good grappler, maybe he can do a similar thing to what Volter Walker was able to do, where Volter he really hasn't striked that much in his UFC career. He kind of just takes guys down and heel hooks them. So maybe for Marcus, he can do a similar thing. I'm not saying heel hook specifically, but maybe he can just take down some of the blobs, and on the ground, it'll be his world, and he'll be able to find submissions and move his way up throughout the rankings. Now, if he has no striking at all, it'll be tough to beat some guys even lower on in the rankings. But even if he is able to beat guys lower on in the rankings and he makes his way up, once he fights like actually good fighters or even actually decent fighters at that division, I think he'll have some problems if he has no striking, but I don't really know much about him. Maybe he does have decent striking. But guys that I consider like who are like actually good, or I guess for the heavyweight division standards, like actually decent, are obviously Tom. I think Tom is like actually very good. But then you have Cyril Gane, Volkov, Pavlovich to an extent, Curtis Blades, Shelton Almeida. I think those guys, those 6 guys, I guess, I consider it to be like pretty good, but everybody outside of that, I don't really think are that good. Like Waldo Cortez Acosta, I think he's only 6 because he's athletic and hits relatively hard, but I don't think he's good. Tybura, I don't think is good. Spivak, I don't think is good. Derek Lewis, I don't think is good either, but the thing with Derek Lewis, he can be losing 4.5 rounds or 2.5 rounds. He lands one big shot, it's over. Tai Tuivasa, I don't think is very good. Gaziev, not good. McParkin sucks. Budai kind of sucks. Taliesin Teixeira, I thought Taliesin would be good. I was kind of disappointed about that. I want new guys to come up at the division. Maybe he could still be good. Derek Lewis just hits really hard, but definitely not an amazing look to get knocked out that quickly by Derek Lewis. And then Kuniev, I know a lot of guys about Kuniev were saying that he's not bad. He's decent, but I personally don't think he's amazing or anything like that. Bushina's a credible grappler. Yeah. So we'll see what happens for him. I kind of hope he's good. We need more talent. What do you think of his 3rd Galantine in a row? That'd be kind of crazy. I've honestly like underrated Duncan, so I guess I'm not like the best guy to ask about this in the past, but I think Rebecki would be able to get a win here. Listen, Rebecki has had some setbacks in his career. He's taken a couple losses to guys that I thought maybe he should have beat. Who did he lose to? Let me see, actually. So he lost to Diego Fajeda, which was like a beatdown. It was an absolute beatdown. That was a bad performance from Rebecki, but he's had some pretty good performances. He's a guy that you would think like he really does go all out. So you would think this guy would gas out like really quickly, and maybe in some other fights he has. But in his last fight versus Orabai, he did a good job at continuing and keeping that high pace for a majority of the fight. So listen, I lean Rebecki. I think I lean Rebecki, but I have underrated Duncan a lot in the past. So we'll see. We'll see what he's able to do. It'll be funny if he was able to get a 3rd guillotine in a row. It'll be him with the guillotines, and it'll be Volter Walker with the heel hooks, 3 in a row for both of them. And it'll be interesting to see who can extend the streak. I would assume Volter Walker would have a better chance, just because I talked about this a lot, but at the heavyweight division, especially like the lower half of the heavyweight division, unranked guys or guys that are ranked low in the heavyweight rankings, I truly believe this. I really believe that they've never seen a heel hook and they just don't know what it is. So that's why he's been able to have so much success, alongside with the fact that what's it called? Volter Walker's actually pretty fast with his heel hook transitions, so he's actually pretty good with it. So yeah, heavyweight division's kind of a mess. I have a video about this coming out relatively soon. Rebecki versus Orba, freaking crazy. That was like one of the fights of the year. I don't remember all the fights that year, so I don't know if it was the fight of the year, but it was insane, bro. The fact that Orabai was able to survive that, and then I think he hurt Rebecki as well in that 3rd round after he was hurt. He definitely busted him up, but I don't remember if he hurt him or not. That was an unbelievable fight. The pride of Sacramento, Orabai. It's just so weird that he trains in Sacramento. But that was an amazing fight, really, really good. So I think a fight like that kind of gives me more confidence in Rebecca going forward. After all the damage he took, I guess he took some damage in that fight as well. But in his fight previous to that, against Diego Ferreira. But yeah, I think Rebecca wins. And that fight was amazing. But Walter Hero is pretty slick. Yeah, they are actually pretty slick. Like he's actually like very fast with them. So it's kind of like a duel. Like the reason why he's so good, I think it comes down to two reasons. The fact that the blobs of the heavyweight division really just don't know what heel hooks are, and they don't know how to defend them. But the other factor is his heel hook transitions are actually like really nice. His last one when he had when he had his opponent in Joku, I believe, in Jessica, when he had him alongside the cage and he just like quickly went for that heel hook transition, that was really impressive. And that was a really good performance, I thought, from Volter Walker. For a while, I thought Volter wasn't really that good. But as he's continued, and especially like 3 fights in a row via heel hook, I think he actually like may be good. So I might have been off on Volter as well. But yeah. Definitely interesting. I'm really, if you can tell at this point, I'm really just looking for anybody, any sort of heavyweight prospect to come to the UFC. Maybe some guys at light heavyweight, Jamal Hill, move up to heavyweight. I just want to see the heavyweight division gain more prospects or gain more contenders. It just feels like outside of Tom Aspinall fighting, there's nobody that's like actually exciting to see at that division, and I think it's kind of unfortunate. Umar's probably fighting Yadong next. Ooh, that'd be a good one. Umar versus Yadong. Yeah, that I think I would lean towards Umar. I think Yadong is good. I just feel like he's not completely polished. He has good striking. He hits really hard. Even his wrestling is not bad. He did get taken down a bunch of times by Jan when Jan blew out his knee, which isn't a great look. But overall, I don't think his wrestling is that bad. Probably Umar will be able to out-wrestle him, though. But I just feel like there's something about Song Yadong's game that's a little bit unrefined. When he went up against Henry Cejudo, yeah, I mean, yes, obviously he won, and it was a weird stoppage or whatever happened. That was like one of the weirder things I've seen. But maybe he would have won anyway, and most likely he would have won anyway. But it just felt like even when he was having success against Cejudo, it just felt like there was something unrefined about his game. And I guess I'm more so talking about his striking game. So I think Umar would probably win that fight. I've liked Song Yadong in the past. He has a lot of power, especially for 135. And he can strike for sure, and he can wrestle. But there's just something I can't really put my finger on it. There's something that's just unrefined about his game. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the fight they put together next. But yeah, bantamweight is interesting. So I assume this is what's going to happen. Merab will fight Corey Sandhagen. Merab will win. I'm pretty confident in that. Then they'll do obviously Peter Yan versus McGee's coming up this weekend. Yan will win, I think, in dominant fashion. Then I think it'll probably be Merab versus Yan next. I know Merab beat Yan 50-45, but there's really not too many contenders that would deserve it more than Yan at this point. Former champion, and at that point he probably would have won 2 or 3 fights in a row. So I think, or maybe more than that. I think Yan will get the next title shot. I think Merab then beats Yan again, maybe in a closer fight, but I think he beats him again. And then after that, I don't exactly know. I guess that's kind of going out pretty far, but I kind of think Merab would be the favorite against most of these guys, and rightfully so. Umar is definitely beating Yadong. Yeah, I think that's probably fair. That's probably fair. One guy. Oh man, I would really like to see this. He's not there yet, but I would really like to see Oliveira versus Umar, because I guess the question would be like, could Umar just take Oliveira down and hold him down? I think the answer is probably yes early, but if Oliveira can land one big shot on Umar and hurt him, then I think he would really, Umar obviously would really respect him at that point and would have to back up. And the pressure of Vinicius Oliveira is ridiculous. And we saw what the pressure of Merab was able to do to Umar without Merab really landing like huge shots or anything like that. So if Vinicius can, pressure Umar and land a couple big shots. Who knows? So I kind of would like to see that fight, but um, maybe I'm overrating Oliveira. He got a good win against Phillips, a guy who tends to gas a little bit. Actually, Phillips didn't even gas that bad in that fight, which I was surprised about. But he was still tired. I just think that the pressure and physicality of Oliveira is kind of ridiculous. So I think he beats a lot of guys, and I would honestly like to see him versus Umar. It wouldn't be soon, obviously, but in the future, I would like to see it. Because Vinicius is 15 right now. He just beat Phillips, who's 12. Maybe he'll be 12 in the rankings, or maybe he'll be 11 in the rankings. After that, maybe do Vinicius versus Rob Font, or Vinicius versus Figueiredo. Maybe that'll be an interesting one. I don't know. Or let's get Oliveira Batista next. That's fair too. Batista, I know a lot of people don't like Batista because his performance against Aldo, which is rightfully so. I mean, that was kind of ridiculous, but Batista is pretty good. But I think Oliveira could beat him. I don't know. I feel like I would lean Oliveira, honestly. But I'm like biased though. I'm very high on Oliveira. Um, but yeah, there's definitely some good matchups you can put together at 135. There's a lot of options. I want Cejudo versus Figgy, Yadong, Song Yadong versus Umar, Yan versus O'Malley too. Yeah, that's fair. I don't mind that. The thing about Yan versus O'Malley too, I think there's a real chance that Yan would beat O'Malley. A lot of people thought he won the first time, and I think he could certainly beat him again, or beat him for the first time, however you feel about that. I just think for Yan, if he beats McGee, I think he'll probably deserve a title shot at that point, and I think him versus Merab probably makes sense. Just the thing is, it's kind of a double-edged sword because he deserves it for sure, but at the same time, Merab 50-45 to him not that long ago. So, I get why you would want to see Yan versus O'Malley more than that, but yeah, I think he's probably going to get a title shot next. But yeah, Cejudo versus Figgy would be a fun one. Song versus Umar is a good one, actually. I like that. And then O'Malley versus Yan is also it's going to be a really fun fight if that does end up happening. I just think Yan is probably going to win that. I think O'Malley is kind of in a weird spot because he's technically the number one contender, but I think most of the guys behind him would beat him. I think Umar would beat Sean. I think Peter Yan would beat Sean. Corey versus Sean is an interesting one. Corey has implemented wrestling within his game, so maybe he could wrestle Sean, but that's an interesting one. I could see Sean beating Corey. Could Sean beat Song Yadong? I could see that. Could Sean beat Figueiredo? I could see that, yeah. Keep range. He'll be a lot bigger and longer than Figgy, but if Figgy can get a takedown, it'll be trouble for Sean. And then Cheeto, obviously, Sean dominated Cheeto. But I don't know. I just think there's a couple guys lower in the rankings than Sean that I would certainly favor over him. So I kind of feel like he's in a weird spot. And even if he fights, let's just say theoretically he fought Umar next and he beat Umar, you can't give Sean another title shot. I mean, I know he gets, privilege. He got a title shot off a loss, but after losing twice to Merab, you can't give him another shot. So I kind of think Sean's in a weird spot. I heard some people talking about him moving up to 145. I don't know if that's an amazing idea. But I mean, he's definitely like tall enough and long enough. It's just he doesn't really have any weight on him. So I don't know. But that's an interesting one. I have to get ready to go to sleep. Got to wake up early tomorrow. Watch a couple of videos. They were worth my time. It was nice meeting you. Oh, thanks so much, man. Thanks so much for watching the videos. I'm definitely going to be pumping out a lot more content coming out soon. And thanks for being in the live stream. Thanks so much for the super chat also, by the way. And thanks for being here. But yeah, that was really nice, Ryan. So peace out. Have a great rest of your day. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of matchmaking to be done at 135 for sure. So we'll see what happens at that weight class. One thing that I was talking about in a couple other live streams is I feel like for the champions and for contenders, there's not really all that many like fights that are like officially booked. Like for Pantoja, it's obvious that Pantoja versus Van is happening next, but it's not booked. And even for some of the contenders like Moreno versus Royval, I think it makes a lot of sense for them to fight again, but it's not booked yet. And then for bantamweight, it's obvious Marab versus Corey is going to happen, but it's not booked yet. And then for contenders fights are not booked. Volkanovski's next fight is not booked, but I guess for that it makes more sense just because the contenders need to fight first. Poirier's next fight is not booked, but I guess that's kind of a tricky situation. JDM versus Islam is happening, but it's not booked yet. I guess my point is Magomed's next fight isn't booked yet, even though it seems like it's going to be against Pereira. And then for Tom Aspinall, it seems like he's going to fight Ciryl, but that's not booked yet either. I guess the point that I'm trying to make is there's a lot of guys that a lot of title fights or a lot of potential fights that seem obvious that they're going to be made, or some contenders fights that seem obvious that should get made, but it just seems like there's some sort of a stalemate about putting cards together or about putting fights together, which I think is kind of weird. But you would like to see some of these fights actually get put together, and the UFC actually be able to put together some stacked cards from top to bottom, and also title fights. We haven't had a title fight, in a decent amount of time, and the last one was Poirier versus Charles, which wasn't that long ago, but there was kind of an asterisk on it because it was an interim belt. So it wasn't an interim belt, but it was a vacant belt, I should say. But yeah, I don't know. I would like to see the UFC move a little bit quicker and put together some cards. Because listen, I know a lot of people, including myself, have talked a lot about the UFC putting together better pay-per-views, better fight nights. And I think they have like the matchups to do it. There's a lot of matchups at 155, at 135, we just went over. There's a lot of matchups that could be made at 145. There's some matchups that could be made even at 170. There's like a lot of really good matchups they can put together at a lot of these weight classes, maybe outside of heavyweight or light heavyweight. Even for light heavyweight, do Khalil Roundtree versus Yuri Prohaska. Like that's a really fun fight. But it just seems like the UFC is not like putting it together. Maybe it's not necessarily their fault. Maybe, fighters don't want to fight right now, or I don't know what's the holdup, obviously. But it does seem kind of weird that, that there's just kind of like delay, I guess. But yeah, we'll see what the UFC does. We have a couple of pretty decent cards coming up in the not too distant future. This weekend's going to be good. Whitaker to Ritter. Then we have a couple of not great Apex cards, but after that we have 319, which should be really good. Then we have the China card, Sang Yadong and everything. So that'll be good. The end of the year's fight should be good at least. Yeah, I think so. Usually the December card. So usually the card in New York in November, I'm assuming that's going to be really good. The card in October, which is going to be in Abu Dhabi, I'm assuming that's going to be really good. And then the card in December, like the last card to end off the year, usually they do stack those cards as well. So yeah, probably like the last 3 pay-per-views of the year are going to be really good. Is at least what I'm assuming. So maybe they're holding a lot of title fights for those cards. But yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in some of those fights. But yeah, listen, I know I've given a lot of flack to the UFC for whatever going to the Apex too much, but as I said before, we haven't seen a fight in the Apex since May, like the last week of May. And yes, we do have a couple fight week cards or Apex cards coming up in a row after this weekend, but then we have 319, which is a great card. The week after that, we have the China card, which is a great card, and it's not in the Apex. Then we have the Paris card, which is a great card, also not in the Apex. And then the card after that is Diego Lopez versus Gene Silva. So that's also obviously not in the Apex. So there's a lot of fun cards coming up, and good matchups and interesting matchups, number one contender fights. I'm definitely excited for Movsar Evloev versus Aaron Pico. It's going to be on 319. On the broadcast, they showed the co-main event as TBD versus TBD, but I'm assuming that's going to be Pico versus Evloev. I heard some rumors about that fight potentially happening on 319, and it's a good enough fight for it to be the co-main event as well, I think, at least. So we'll see what they end up putting there. I'm assuming it's going to be that. And I think it was Aaron Pico went online and on Twitter or something, or Instagram, whatever it was. And he said, looks like I'm going to be fighting at UFC 319. So I'm assuming that fight is going to be there. So yeah, definitely some interesting ones coming up in the not too distant future. But yeah. A fucking haircut, bro. In a haircut tomorrow. Unbelievable. But yeah, what else we got? Not too much. So in terms of, I don't know if I mentioned this already before, but in terms of videos coming out soon, I've officially made the transition. I'm going to be doing 3 videos a week. I guess really starting next week. But starting next week, I'm going to be posting Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 videos a week. It's going to be more videos with longevity. Right now, I'm posting a lot of videos like during a specific fight week. So you'll see on Wednesday and on Friday. I have 2 videos coming out this week, talking about the RDR fight more in depth, and then talking about the Peter Yan fight more in depth. But the longevity of it is not really there. It's kind of just talking about this upcoming card for this week, and after the fight's over, no one's really going to care about that anymore. So my goal for uploading 3 videos is uploading videos with more longevity. I have a video coming out next Monday. Somebody mentioned in chat, I thought it was a good idea, about weight cutting and why fighters weight cut, the advantages of weight cutting. And it's kind of like an in-depth breakdown and history lesson, I guess, of how it became about. So I'll be doing that. Obviously, we'll continue the live streams. We'll do more tier lists. I know Joshua was mentioned in the best chin tier list that we were able to do today. I know also some other guys were mentioned in some other tier lists that we should do. So I think we'll do another tier list tomorrow. I'll figure out exactly what that tier list was going to be. I know early on in chat, I don't remember exactly who it was, but somebody mentioned that we should do like a worst injuries tier list, like worst injuries in a fight tier list. So maybe we'll do that tomorrow. Maybe we'll do worst chins tier list. There's definitely a lot of options for different tier lists that we can do, and they're always pretty fun. Putting together a list and seeing what you guys think of it, and yeah. But yeah, we've been streaming for like 2 hours at this point. It's been really, really fun. I appreciate everybody for being here. If you guys have any last second questions, or if you want me to continue the stream or whatever, let me know in chat and I'll definitely answer them. Or if we get a lot of questions, I'll continue stream. But yeah, if not, I appreciate everybody for being here. I hope you guys enjoyed the live stream. I'll be seeing you boys tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. As I said, I stream every day during the week, 8 p.m. Eastern time, and be on the lookout for videos on Wednesday. And yeah, peace out, Joshua. Peace out, boys. I hope you have a great rest of your night, and I'll see you boys tomorrow, 8 p.m.